Well. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. It is a little bit of a later Sunday morning over here as I didn't get the best night of sleep last night, but plenty to talk about on Bitcoin as Saturday was quite eventful once again. And now I'm feeling silly for my no trades on weekends rule. But with that said, I would like to wish you the best, and the happiest, because there's plenty to talk about today. And let's waste no more time and get in the Krown Chain application over here, which we found at app.krownchain.net. And it is 100% free, my friends. Anyways, looking at open interest, we actually do see about 100 million added to open interest from yesterday to today, suggesting that while price action does go up, while open interest goes up, people are adding on long positions, aka accumulating within this range, and that is actually really important to kind of reflect upon because it is going to play into the analysis a little bit later on. On top of that, we do see Bitcoin dominance still actually staggering up, of which yesterday I believe we were hanging around right about at 63% even, and now another 0.5% up, which does suggest that yes, we are not really seeing rotations in the altcoin market right now. We're actually just seeing altcoins get fucking wrecked, whether Bitcoin's actually trending to the upside or the downside, or whether it's going sideways in consolidation range, which is well, we should probably just check out the Bitcoin dominance chart today. Also, fear and greed index also popping up 1 point from a 90 to a 91, and into the data tab we go. And what do we see over here as I check that I'm actually recording? Okay, I am recording, so that's great. And what do we see? Yes, funny rate is pretty much inconsequential. In fact, we even show a couple of exchanges posting a negative rate right there, Bybit and OKX particularly. Now, none of these are anything out of the ordinary, and not much can be made out of this, but it is essentially just saying that, it's essentially just suggesting what we already know, that this is par for the course. We are consolidating, and we don't really have any major change behavior as it is right now. Fear and greed index, as you can see, still extremely greedy. We are an extremely greedy market, which should be, which would make sense when things are just basically up fucking $10,000 since about September. So with that said, let's start off with our good old, do we want to start off with our secondary charts today? Yes, we should start it off with our secondary chart. Or actually, no. Let's follow up on yesterday's short-term time frame analysis. So let's go over here to our spot price action charts, and here we go. Okay, let's just pull this baby out, or actually let's just get rid of it for now. And more importantly, let's zero in on this. So yesterday, while I did actually have a little bit of a slight downside bias due to trend, the key critical component of this and switching around was any sort of a 4-hour or 2-hour closure above this last little prior local high right here at about 18,400-ish region. That condition was met actually on the dildo, it looks like right after I ended that video, I believe, or maybe 2 after that. Anyways, and that did initiate our next targets up to 18.6 relatively quickly, of which that's a next short-term pivot, of which that was also taken out rather aggressively as well. And what do we have now? Now we're coming back up to the 18,800-ish region. So I did say that if Bitcoin does break above 18.6, then very likely we will find ourselves, or Bitcoin will find itself, as I am not a magic internet money. I'm for what I know, a human, although I would like to be a cybernetic human because I've been playing a lot of Cyberpunk recently and it is fucking glorious. So I cannot wait until the goddamn dystopian future. It is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Anyways, and I'll probably be doing a Twitch stream maybe even later today on it, and definitely Monday. Anyways, looking at this right now, would I still be sticking with that, looking for Bitcoin to kind of just float its way upwards and onwards? Technically, yes. I really dislike that this move is happening over a weekend. It makes me very much guarded upon it. Yesterday, it was yesterday, as we said, if this was a weekday, seeing the things that we saw, it would have been a very obvious up call. In this case, obviously that happened, but in this case, we actually have now a series of events that have been similar to that, and perhaps I should be letting go of my narrative that counter trend move over the weekend are typically not sustained. Now, I would like to see it at least happen, another couple times, but last weekend we had the exact same thing happening, and was the weekend before that way? No, I don't believe so. So we do actually have, the first sort of example of that not happening, and this could be the second right here. 3 times does make a trend, and right now, it's like, do you want to fight it or not? Well, at the end of the day, I do want to reflect upon the fact that we do see that CMEs did close Friday at 18,020, so I would still be defensive against another move to the downside, but again, as we've been saying, all higher term timeframes are bullish, so that is to be interpreted as an opportunity, at least in my opinion. Of course, this is not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, but as we've been saying, all higher term timeframes, weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, and quarterly, are all incredibly bullish. And with the advent of this last rally that we saw yesterday, solidifying this as a local low, any sort of a move back down to upper $17,000 region or low $18,000 region, I would look at as a massive opportunity. Of course, this was further sort of verified. Jesus Christ, man, get that shit out of my face. Sorry, there's like conspiracy fucking cave theories going on right now. It's just Guys, talk about fucking price action for the love of God. Jesus Christ. Nothing's getting solved by posting a goddamn video about some sort of random conspiracy theory. I'm telling you that right now. But it is kind of fun to talk about. Anyways, yes, this is now confirmed as a local low. So instead of waiting for 17,150 to be taken out to declare an actual beginning of downtrend, now we could use this point right here with the advent of yesterday's closure, or sorry, with the advent of yesterday's price action at 18,000 bucks. So with that said, as long as Bitcoin now is above 18,000 bucks on a daily closing basis, I am more or less bullish. I mean, this is higher highs and higher lows, and that is an uptrend. And if we were to look at this from a more longitudinal perspective, well, what do we have right here? We have the etchings of what would be a bullish reaccumulation formation and ascending triangle. Of course, don't really care what the fuck, these things are called. At the end of the day, it has basically has a psychology and interpretation behind it. What's happening right here? Accumulation at higher and higher levels as people get more and more aggressive buying. That's really all that it comes down to. But of course, I've seen every fucking pattern break out every goddamn which way. It's just more likely to, statistically speaking, to break out to the upside here. I'd even lower this, by the way, because I do think that this is a little bit more relevant right here anyways. But, minutia as my OCD starts to get going in the early morning hours. More importantly, we do see that Bitcoin popping back above the Bollinger Bands would suggest that, yes, technically speaking, I probably should be looking for a move probably this week, actually, back into the mid to low $19,000 region, of which Bitcoin's pretty much, it's pretty fucking close there already. So let's put a number on it. I'd say about 19.3 to 19.5 regions where I'd be looking for. And we are going to see momentum oscillators have a chance to turn back up. If we do see this next signal, this is going to be a big one. This is going to be a really fucking big one. And this would make me look for not just a test to the top side of the range this coming week, probably even look for a break to the top side of the range. And then we can talk about targets into the low $20,000 region probably the rest of this month. And what would that be? That would be two things here. I want to see Bitcoin close the daily total above, once again, above the 20 simple. Obviously, we got one yesterday. I want to see today's close as well. That would be your first opening closure above. Then I want to see if both of these things happen, that's phenomenal. And that would make me just look for just a general melt up. Once again, if one of these things happens, probably good enough on its own, but still going to take some time. Anyways, first and foremost, I want to see the MACD start to curl back around. Histogram is already loosened in script, but if we do see a bullish cross while Bitcoin is above these levels right here, that's going to be pretty fucking good, especially if we can break above 19,450 or 19,500, depending upon which time frame that you're using. But more importantly, higher term time frame is going to be better. If that happens, this break, is very likely to lead on to our next targets of 22,000 and 23,000 respectively. On top of that, if this happens, then that would be even more impressive, and that's a DMI. If the DMI plus is dominant, which technically speaking right now it is, although it's getting down there quite aggressively now, and the ADX starts strengthening, which neither is, I'd say that really neither is happening. Of course, the ADX is very obvious here, but the DMI plus, I'm using incredibly aggressive settings right here, and that's just, it's not even giving it right now, basically. But if that were to happen as well, then yes, I would be looking for this one to probably even gun a little bit higher than that. So of course, the etchings are in right now, and with Bitcoin putting another higher low, even the most simple of simple analysis forms with trading with the trend is all suggesting more upside from here. So the question of yesterday was pretty much answered in the sense that while Bitcoin is bullish on the higher term timeframes, is it right to be bullish right now? Is it right to be looking for a move to the upside right now? Well, taking out 1840 to the upside yesterday was that big bad trigger for, I suppose, solidifying those views. Even though over the weekend I do not trade these sorts of things, still at the end of the day, congrats to all the people who did, because, well, fair enough. Also, I just think that over the weekend, it's just nice to have some actual off time, because for myself, I'm just fucking OCD as hell, and I won't stop looking at the charts unless I make myself stop looking at the charts. So it's like forced time off, basically. So fair enough, and we might actually see a change of market dynamics here too. So that's very, very possible. But for right now, I would still be a little bit defensive. Yes, this does really solidify that the overall view of this is bullish. However, because this is over a weekend, I would still be a little bit on the edge here, especially considering that CMEs did close Friday at 18,020. So if Bitcoin does want to range here and come back down, I would look at that as a major opportunity. And with that said, can we come up with some levels on the short-term timeframes as they are right now? I'm sure that we can. Yes, we can use the same pivot from yesterday, 18.6, or we could even, we could raise this up a little bit here. We could use 18.650 to the downside. If that area is broken to the downside, I would look for another test back down, actually towards the $18,000 region. Anywhere around here is good. There's not really a perfect area, except for the fact that we do have CME's closure from Friday kind of coming into this region as well. So I actually would simplify and go all the way down somewhere in between the 200 simple at, high 17.9 or this level right here on the earlier breakout from, I think this was leading out of Friday, which was about 18.1. So anywhere around there would look about good. And I would be looking for an opportunity within that region. And of course, risk management below our current higher low, which Bitcoin has once again confirmed. I think it's also important to reflect upon this, which was confirmed on Friday. No, was it on spot? Where the fuck was it? Oh yeah, no, it's on this chart over here. Okay, that's right. All right, my regular charts. Okay, so this one was a big one to me as well. With Bitcoin on CME closing back above the 21 exponential moving average on Friday. That was also a big tell that Bitcoin was likely to, keep on doing its thing here. So at the end of the day, the trend is your friend until the end of the trend, and the trend has been your friend for the last 3 months. And all you've had to do, you don't need to know shit about trading. You just need to just get fucking long, apparently. But looking at momentum oscillators right here, should we go through the low term timeframes first or the higher term timeframes? Well, of course, we did speak about this yesterday as well. Sorry, I keep on referencing things that we spoke about yesterday, but I do want to follow up for the people who have been here for a while so that we can see how these things, operate over a longitudinal time span, as that is, well, I think that's valuable in and of itself. For the people who are like new here, it probably just sounds like hindsight bullshit, which fair enough, it is. But if you go reference the video from yesterday, you'll see for yourself. Anyways, yes, looking at 12-hour right here. So remember yesterday we did say that if Bitcoin does close a 12-hour above, Friday's close essentially, which was $18,050, then we actually will initiate hidden bullish divergence, which Caretaker did identify right here, and that would initiate targets actually not just where we are right now, but higher, 19.3 to 19.5 region, of which we also see this combined with a 12-hour stoke across the upside and a chance to get out of the bearish control zone probably on the next tick or two at the very most. So with that in mind, the 12-hour RSI also getting back above the exponential, and long term this is incredibly constructive. So I do like this read still. But I wouldn't, I certainly wouldn't put it past Bitcoin to go a little bit sideways with this range, and still, after maybe testing the top side of the range, probably spend a little more time going sideways and then set it up for a break maybe later this coming week. As we do see on historic volatility percentile, we actually are going to go into an expansion phase once again, it looks like, on the 12-hour. However, I want to see that moving average flatten out and get a positive slope before I really go full on into that. But let's see what the lower term time frames are doing first before we get a little bit more happy with that. And seeing the 4-hour stokes, we are way the fuck up there right now, but that's not a death sentence. And to be fair, check out what CMEs are doing on Friday. They're actually way the fuck down here. So this is going to be a little bit of a weird open on late Sunday, early Monday, and I imagine that they'll probably come into parity with each other around Tuesdays, which is what we typically do see. So it would make sense that Bitcoin does want to play out a pullback from either this level or maybe a little bit higher, then that probably does get reaccumulated, and we'll just have to kind of like see that one in real time. You can't really call that thing before it happens, and you can, but it can end very devastatingly, of course, too. 4-hour RSI, what do we see right here? Looking good. However, short-term pullback probably wouldn't be out of the question either. If we can get back into the bullish control zone, though, that's going to start to look really good for continuation over to 19.4 to 19, basically like 19.4, 19.5, the top side of the range. Historical volatility percentile here, however, is going to contract a little bit once again. I do want to see it get back down into the low teens or single digits before looking for the next sort of floaty movement here. I was about to say impulsive, but no, that's not the right terminology. But the next short-term move, essentially. Looking at the 3-hour, do we see anything of interest here as well? Actually, this is exactly what I want to see on the 4-hour HVP. I want to see it get really low, and then yes, I would be looking for if that expansion comes to the upside, 19.3 to 19.4 is certainly not out of the question. If that expansion comes to the downside, about 18,000 even would be the target. But for right now, momentum also is looking more or less good. I think the RSI tells the story a little bit better than Stokes right here. But of course, Stokes being in this region is actually, in my opinion, good, and in my experience, good. That just shows us that we are in strong upwards momentum, and it's really the bullish crosses that you want to be looking for, the bullish signals in an overall uptrend. Vice versa for a downtrend, of course. Trading with the trend, crazy fucking idea, right? I would even postulate that like any trading strategy is going to become a much, maybe not much more, but definitely at least a little bit more effective if just trading, if just taking signals that are on the same side of the current trend. Now, of course, it's going to be impossible in some cases, because like divergences are always going to be counter trend, but hidden divergences will not be, so fair enough. Anyways, what do we have on the 2 hour? Basically same thing right here as well. 2 hour golden cross. Hey, so it's going to the fucking moon right now too, and historical volatility percentile incredibly low here. So we are seeing 2, 3, and 4 hour all setting up probably for a move later today when CME's open, I would imagine. It is coming relatively close. Momentum oscillator is more or less the same on other time frames, so we don't have anything new to talk about here as well. And same thing on the hourly, extremely low right now. So we are gearing up for a move probably today, probably around the time that CME is open, I'd imagine. And if that expansion does come to the upside, 19.3 to 19.4 would be my target. If it comes to the downside, 18,000 even. Now, how would I define a break to the downside, however? Well, I think we kind of already went over this, but it would be this level right here, 18,650. If that area does break to the downside, I probably wouldn't wait for a 4 hour. I'd probably do it on a 2 hour. Yeah, you could do it on a 2 hour. Then yes, I'd be targeting to move back down towards 18.1 or 18,000 even. By the same token, as long as it's above, I guess I'm just generally bullish. If you want, if you want another pivot to the upside before that area, that would be 18.9 where we're at right now, just coming from this last little breakdown right here. But generally speaking, the trend is your friend here, and in this case right now, upside would be the path of least resistance for the current moment. Anyways, back onto the hourly. Anything else that we want to say right here? Oh, we have some hidden bullish divergence once again in the hourly, not bad. But I would say that that's already played out, and hourly Stokes getting it once again. So yeah, next move probably does come to the upside, to be fair. I do want to see what CMEs look like when they open, but I'm going to be asleep, so fuck off. Anyways, no, just kidding. I'm not talking to you either. I'm talking to Bitcoin's price action happening in the early morning hours for myself. It's 24 hours in the day. I need 10 more. And if you know where that's from, well, you, sir, we should be really, really good friends. Anyways, let's see. Let's go to the medium term time frame. See what we got going on here. 12 hour looks good. 12 hour looks fine. Looks solid, thick, tight. Keep me updated on your continued progress, bro, because 12 hour Stokes, nice and erect. 12 hour RSIs, we identified earlier, hidden bullish divergence, plus back above the exponential, and higher lows on top of that. Yeah, if I had to call this right now, I'd be looking for 19.3 to 19.4 for the next move. If things do want to come back down and tag like 18.6 base first, completely fine. But as long as you're above the short-term pivot of 18.650, I'm essentially just looking for Bitcoin to float its way upwards and onwards. Anything on the daily here? Daily has hidden bullish divergence 2 actually being confirmed on the closure. And yeah, target for that one's going to be 19.4 to 19.5 actually. And this is all coming along the side of daily Stokes nosediving here, actually getting down to the edge of the bullish control zone, which typically does have counter trend pressure just based off the fact of that. I'm curious what CMEs are going to look like in comparison to that. Yeah, they're not going to have the same open, obviously. So all jokes aside, Gap Boys will very likely be vindicated right here. So I do think that while Bitcoin likely is short-term bullish, I don't know if it's necessarily ready to break out to the top side just yet. I wouldn't be surprised if we pop up, if I'm giving like my legitimate opinion on this, and we're almost in the T-Nerd session, so if I'm giving my like legitimate fucking stupid crystal ball opinion on this, which again, I would not trade this, but just doing this for the last 10 goddamn years, sometimes you notice things that work relatively often. I'd probably be looking for short-term up, probably back up to about 19.4, 19.5. I'd probably be looking for a rejection back there, come back down to about, low $18,000 base. That's probably your next major low. And then yes, Bitcoin probably does give a legitimate try above 20,000. We get moon boobs when we start talking about, 22 to 23,000 bucks. Of course, all the prior targets to the upside are still very much relevant. We do see this area right here, based off the formation right here, we would have one massive ascending triangle, which would have a mesh move towards the just below $23,000 level right there. Of course, we do throw a fib on this as well. Then I'm sure that we'll have something else to line up with it because we've already done this a million times. And what do you know? The two-spot extension would be right there. If we're looking for, before I was getting the 272, oh yes, that's if I use daily closes, which probably should be using if we're looking at a bigger formation like this. And yes, indeed, and that would be right around the 2-spot 272. So a couple of areas of interest along the way, obviously, just above 22,000 would be the 2-spot, and then we got the 1-spot 414 right here at about 20,500 for short-term moves. But ultimately, yes, I do believe that full on measure move would be hit over time, assuming that those conditions are met with any sort of a 4-hour total closure above 19,550 or any sort of a daily closure above probably 19,450 gets it. So $100 delta between the two, and that would be just slightly better way, I suppose. Anyways, what else do we have on the daily right here? Is there anything else of interest? I mean, the daily hidden bullish divergence, yes, does play out rather well as well. So yeah, do you have to be kind of short-term bullish here? But is Bitcoin ready to break above and just fucking erupt? I don't know about that just yet. If I had to call it right now, I'd probably be looking for things to come back down after that condition is met. And then we play the game from there. I still remain overall bullish on all higher term timeframes. The only question is really on the low term timeframes, and even they are looking actually quite okay right now too. With 18,650 as a nice pivot. Buy daily, what are we seeing right here? It does close today, as does the 3-day and does the weekly. So any sort of a closure above the 10 simple, which is basically that 18.6 pivot. Yep, I'm looking for a retest of 19.5 and probably beyond. We do see buy day Stokes nosediving a little bit, but what would be needed to actually twist him back up to the upside? Actually, we need to close on new highs, in fact. So that's kind of another thing on the same side as saying, hey, while things do look good here, I would still be I'd still be looking at this as likely to wait a little bit. Test the old water sometimes. Anyways, buy daily RSI, we do have hidden bullish divergence almost in the process of being confirmed. That'll be confirmed with any sort of a closure above the 10 simple. Again, 18,550 to 18,600 as that pivot, and then yes, next target would be 1940, 19.5. Do we have anything else on the buy daily here? Yes, still expanding on historical volatility percentile. Nice, not bad. And what do we see on 3-day? We do see less obvious things actually, but we do see the expansion phase still happening on 3-day historical volatility percentile. So this is what makes me very interested in this next move, because anytime that we've seen a read like this coming down to single digits for a prolonged period of time, while things start to expand. I mean, we're talking about multi-$1,000 moves, and in some cases we're talking about like 50% moves with direction non-implied here, of course. But last time we saw not even as powerful as a signal as what we're seeing right now was back when over here producing about a $3,500 move in this segment. The time before that was this move over here from 10,000 to 4,000, more than 50% move, actually quite nasty indeed. And this one was very similar to the signal that we're seeing right now. This one over here, incredibly similar to the signal that we're seeing now as well, coming in from single digits, and then boom, major explosion from 4,000 to 14,000, and same thing over here to the downside, 6,000 to 3,000, and we can go over past prior examples on top of that. But my point is that if and when Bitcoin does break the range, whether it be to the upside or the downside, and the resolution points to the upside and the downside are actually different now to the downside, but to the upside still 19,450 or 19,550 depending upon which time frame you're using. To the downside, we can now move the downside resolution point to 17.6, this last prior low on a 4-hour, or on a daily, I think it was like 18,000. Yeah, it was basically about 18,000 bucks. So yes, fair enough. My point is that whichever way that we resolve this formation is going to have humongous implications. If it comes to the downside, I'm looking for an extreme move, probably to 14,000 bucks at least, and probably even beyond on top of that. If it comes to the upside, 23,000 is going to be an obvious target, but I highly doubt things stop there. I mean, we're talking about a perfect signal from this, which can really lead to another humongous melt up. And I'm saying that now in the TA Nerd session because that is true, and I really want to kind of stay away from saying more aggressive things in the earlier parts of this video, because it's usually like people who are just looking to be spoon fed are listening to the first parts of the video. I'm speaking in like a lot more of a serious tone right now, a lot more akin to how I usually speak. And this would be a very shattering move, to put it quite bluntly. So if it did come to the upside, extremely unlikely things would stop at 23,000. It'd be a lot more likely that we can start talking about some really incredible targets. I don't really have anything in mind on top of it other than that. It would be a melt up. And what I've learned in the past is to not get in the way of these moves. I would strongly suggest, if we do see this breakout to the upside, do not try to pick tops. I've gone broke that way in similar sort of environments. It is not wise, and it is and realistically all you have to do is just get long on these sorts of moves. And I mean, this could be another just absolute fucking melt. So of course, at the end of the day, still want to see proof, not promises. So I want to actually see a resolution above the top side of the range. Again, a daily closure above 19,450 or a 4-hour above 19,550 would likely do it for me. And then we can talk about some pretty impressive stuff. Anything else? So we got the weekly closing today as well, and the weekly. Actually, let's go see what the weekly is looking like on the Trollender bands over here. So this is very interesting here too. We saw this last week, or was it last week? I think it was last week. Yeah, we did see it last week. Where well, no, they both closed above. Okay, fair enough. No, that's not a topic of conversation. But we did see a CMEs close below the topside Trollender band this week to end this week. So what would that imply? Well, typically implies that spot's going to do the same thing as well. It could very easily close above here, because guess where the resolution point is? 19.5. That sounds very familiar for an overall resolution of this formation to the upside anyways, and that's going to imply not only, from a pattern perspective and also a fib extension perspective, higher targets, but also from a Trollender band perspective, it'd say that we're still trending here. Any sort of a closure above the topside Trollender band, again, 19.5, that's going to look incredibly good for the end of the week here. So if that does happen, well, get ready, my friends. Get fucking ready. So that would be that would certainly be something to pay attention to. Of course, still got another, I don't know, 600 or so bucks from where we're at right now to confirm that. But Bitcoin sneezing on a Sunday sometimes can do just that as well. Anyways, what else do we want to talk about here? Let's go back down and see Bitcoin dominance really quick. Let's see BTC.D. There we go. Alrighty, show me your D, baby. Yep. This and as we said, coming into this week, this is more likely to operate as a higher low. We're not coming back down any further. This is it, and I would stick with that. I'd still be targeting upper 60%, low 70% long term. Look at the monthly. This is ready to go. Now, a lot of people have been asking me questions about this as well. They've been like showing moving averages and momentum oscillators and shit like that and divergences on the dominance chart. I don't believe that any of that works. I sincerely do not believe that literally any of that works. I think that that's just a waste of time. What I do trust on the Bitcoin dominance is trend. And in this case right here, what do we have on the monthly? We have a fucking uptrend. and in this uptrend, I'd be looking for it to be my friend a little bit longer into the low 70s at the very least, and probably even more than that. This is looking very, 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 very bad for alts. And I'll say that again in the TA Nerd session. This looks absolutely fucking abysmal for alts. All jokes aside, there's going to be a lot of fucking Lexington steals up in this, up in probably quarter one 2021, as alts are not even having a good time while Bitcoin's literally sideways within a range. That has not been the case in the past during these massive rallies or massive dumps. Typically, usually when things are trending, alts go terrible against the Bitcoin pairing, and then they follow versus the US dollar. So with that in mind, this would be the environment that you'd expect alts to actually do better in, and they're not. So I would be looking for further bouquet parties with the altcoins on the whole. We can look at a couple just really, really quickly here. Again, versus US dollar, they're going to do whatever Bitcoin does. Buterol is going to be bullish versus the dollar. 850 is a legitimate target coming into January and February. Looking at 4-hour right here, not as strong of a structure as Bitcoin spot. If Bitcoin does turn back down, I'd be looking for this one to grind back down towards 545, but I look at this as an opportunity once again to the upside. Obviously, about 600 bucks is where I'm looking towards. What about Litecoin really quick? Same shit. It's basically same shit, same chart. Above 77.5, I'm looking for moves back up towards 82 and beyond. Below 75 even almost, I'll be looking for a retest of lows, and I imagine that comes alongside of whatever Bitcoin does. So again, it is a Sunday, and I do still hold on to what I've been saying. Over the weekends, we typically see these moves puked out on the whole. The only exception was last week actually, and even then you could argue that was not true either, because things eventually did come back down intro week. So now we're kind of getting some rationalization. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. My point is though, is that I'd still be a little bit on edge about this. But most importantly, and here's a direct point, most importantly, I'd look at any sort of a downside move, especially to like upper 17,000 or low 18,000 as a major opportunity now. Of course, with risk management in mind, as our prior low on a 4 hour is about 17.6, and on a daily, as we said, 18,000. So the areas are well defined, but as long as Bitcoin's is fulfilling that criteria, I don't really have any reason to be bearish on this price action at all. So fair enough. Anyways, anything else that we want to check out? Do we want to do some fun stuff today too? Or do we want to check out some BLX index and do this on the weekly and take it on linear scale? We can do a little bit of this. I don't know how well it's going to work with this, but I used to show this matrix chart. Let's see. Can we do it like this? It's going to be, yeah, it's really fucking difficult here to see when it's not on log scale. But if I put it on log scale, it's actually going to destroy what I want to talk about. But basically, okay, I can go through the explanation here. All right. Yeah, we might as well end on this, I guess. Or do we want to end on this? Do I want to go through the full explanation on this? Do I even want to present this? This is a little bit too experimental. Basically, it's showing that the 20-minute exponential moving average on the weekly would be the next like macro buy, where the fuck that comes in around, as this is your long-term basing area. So it is saying that we are entering into a new phase right now. But no, I don't think I'm going to go through the full explanation on this. This would be too moon boyish for me, and while I think that stuff is interesting and it certainly gets a lot of attention too, from what I notice, I don't think that it's appropriate for me to talk. I really want to not be that person. I don't want to be that type of person on the YouTubes. I want to be more short term and more reasonable, at least within the parameters of like an actual trading regimen, not like a fucking long term investor, of which that is kind of speaking more towards. But basically, it'd just be showing that Bitcoin is like it's really in the next phase. We'll put it that way. Anyways, any last words, Krown? Any last words before you die? No, I think I'll just go down nice and quietly. All right, let's wrap this bitch up then. All right, let's wrap this bitch up. Alrighty. Bitcoin on the weekly is going to have a chance to close the weekly dildo above the topside shoulder band once again. If that condition is met anywhere above 19,500, then I would be looking for another melt-up phase to happen. Of course, on the lower-term timeframes, though, all the action is going on right here over the weekend, and while it is a weekend, we are once again having a move, which is rather interesting. However, I am skeptical still, but to be fair, all higher term timeframes are bullish, as we've been saying. Weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, and quarterly. We have the 2-day, 3-day, and weekly all closing today. All of them are looking more or less good. And of course, going on to our 12-hour right here, we did confirm the hidden bullish divergence that we identified yesterday right here. Same thing on daily, actually a little bit later in the day, of course, as well. Same thing. So I would be looking for the test back up into the bullish control zone, which would imply a target short term somewhere in the actually mid to low $19,000 region. So 19.3 to 19.5 would be the next major area. But I would not call a breakout and resolution on this formation until we either get one of two things: a daily dildo closure above 19,450 or a 4-hour closure above 19,550. Could even make that 1970 if you want to be super conservative. However, the advent of yesterday's price action did change one major thing for the long term. Our next higher low now, as solidified by yesterday's closure, is going to be 18,000 about even. That is a very interesting number because that also does come in contact with where Bitcoin did close on CMEs on Friday. So that would imply that if Bitcoin does come back down around there, that actually would be interpreted, at least in my opinion, as a major opportunity. And I would also be willing to get bearish if Bitcoin does any sort of a daily closure below that last closing low. Again, 18,000 even. If I'm looking at this on a 4-hour, that would be actually significantly lower, about 17,650, we'll call it. So as long as those conditions are met, I am essentially long-term bullish on this formation, and this formation is to be interpreted as one massive ascending triangle, essentially with rising lows along the way, which would imply targets, if resolved to the upside, towards about 22,000 and 23,000 based off of this extension right here, and also this measure move right here, which is pretty damn nice. But I still want to see things confirmed here. Now, of course, on the short-term timeframes, I would be using this pivot, the same pivot that we had yesterday. Well, actually, we had two pivots yesterday. The big one being 18.4, driving that next move up towards 18.6 and then low $19,000 region. That was obviously met, but I would still say that this one's really important here because it is a Sunday, and a lot of the times we do see these moves puked out. But as long as Bitcoin is above this pivot right here, 18,650 on a 2-hour or 4-hour dildo closure, yes, I have no real reason to even be short-term bearish. If Bitcoin does come back down below this level and especially close a 2-hour or 4-hour below there, I would target another move back down towards $18,000 base or upper $17,000 region, which I would interpret as the next major opportunity in Bitcoin land, to be quite honest with you, with obvious, obvious risk management areas below our current higher low that Bitcoin put in on Sunday or on Saturday actually. So with that said, I am, I suppose, cautiously bullish on just about all time frames, which makes me feel very silly on a weekend. But with that said, I'd like to wish you a happy and healthy Sunday. Take care, and until next time.